Welcome to this presentation on searching the chemistry literature. Hello everybody, my name is Dermot Stokes and I am your liaison librarian. And today we're going to be going through how you can search independently for information. So during this presentation we're going to show you how you can use OneSearch to search for information. We're going to make sure you know where you can find the databases and resources for chemistry as well. And we're going to show you how you can use those resources to search for the articles you need for assignments and for projects. After this presentation, how to search, you'll also get an opportunity to find out how to use EndNote. If you haven't heard of EndNote already, EndNote is software that you can use to manage your references. So as you search for references in OneSearch, in databases like Reaccess or SciFinder or Web of Science, you can bring them into your EndNote library. Then when you're writing any assignment and you need to reference anything, you can easily put them from your EndNote library into a Word document. I do recommend you try this out. It'll save you loads of time and take the pressure off getting your referencing correct, because EndNote will sort that out for you. So it's very nice to see you all. You'll find out as you go through the presentation how to contact me if you have any questions, and I do strongly suggest you get in touch at any stage if you have any questions. So I hope you enjoy this presentation and that you come back with any questions that you might have. After this session, you should be aware of all the supports that are available on the library website, including the chemistry subject guide. You should be familiar with searching OneSearch. You should be able to search for information on a topic using a variety of sources. So where can you start looking for information? There are many places where you can search for chemistry information. We'll be reminding you in a few minutes how you can use OneSearch to search for information, but there are also subject-specific databases such as SciFinder or Reaccess, or broad science databases such as Web of Science. Google Scholar also is a very handy tool to use, as well as highlighting resources that UCD has purchased. It's also a great way of finding free versions of articles that UCD does not subscribe to. And you may also find yourself, even at this stage, gravitating towards certain journals because of your own personal interests. The great thing is that most of these journals are available online, so you can set up an alert and they will email you when the new table of content comes out, when the new issue is published. And of course, let's not forget Wikipedia. Wikipedia is something we all probably use, but from an academic point, it's not really good enough. The best thing about Wikipedia is also one of its biggest limitations, and that is that anybody can create a Wikipedia page. So you would not use Wikipedia as a reference in any assignment. I want to start off by reminding you of some of the sources on the library website. The main section on the website is the I am a student section, and you can find this by clicking on the guides and help link at the top of every library web page. When you get into there, you'll see a number of options. Make sure you select I am a student, and when you're in the I am a student section, you'll see three main areas: videos and interactive tutorials, so you can check that out to see if we have done a video to answer any questions that you might have. We've created subject guides for all the disciplines supported here in UCD, including chemistry. And one of the things we always say is always think when you get a question, is it multidisciplinary or not? And if it is, check to see if we have a subject guide for those other disciplines. And then you can see what resources that we have. And the final section is study skills. Here you can find information about evaluating information, searching effectively, referencing and citing, and also EndNote. And we'll be talking more about EndNote later on in the session. And here is the chemistry subject guide. On the left hand side you'll see my contact details, so if at any stage you have any questions about using the library, please feel free to email me and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. On the right hand side you'll see a section there called Journal Articles and Databases. Here when you go into Journal Articles and Databases, you'll see some of the main databases for chemistry such as Reaccess, SciFinder, Scholar, etc. One of the primary search tools that we have in the library is OneSearch, and you may have used this already to search for books, journal articles, etc. So Coming up are 3 short videos. You can pause the video when they come up and go to the URL that's on the screen and review them, or you can go directly to the videos and tutorials section of I'm a Student and view the videos there as well. Now, while OneSearch is a powerful tool, it only represents what we already have bought in the library. So it doesn't give a full image of or full view of what's available to you. So that's why you should be going out and using the databases we've mentioned to you already to get a fuller view, a wider view of all the literature that's on your topic. Now that we have reminded you of how to use OneSearch and where the main supports on the library website are located, including the chemistry subject guide, we're going to talk about how you can use these tools to search effectively for information. One of the biggest problems we all suffer from today is information overload. There's just so much information out there, it's hard to know where to start looking and what the best sources are. The best way of combating this information overload is to have a planned literature search. And a literature search is a well thought out and organized search for all the literature published on the topic. And it's the most effective and efficient way of locating sound evidence on the subject you're researching. This slide is to indicate why it's so important. This is a table from a study that was done in 2009, and the researchers calculated that every year there was 1.3 million articles being published. In the intervening 10 or 11 years, this is more than doubled, and the most recent figure I've seen suggests there's 2.7 million articles being published. So every week, every day, every month there is a torrent of information coming towards you. And if you don't have a plan to search for it, you're going to be at a disadvantage. How do you go about searching effectively? Well, it's really important to stop and think about what you're searching for before you actually do the search. You also need to bear in mind that a successful search is going to move irrelevant references. There's a lot you can do while searching to get rid of articles you know in advance you don't want to see. It's also important that you end up with a manageable number of highly relevant references. You don't want to end up with thousands of references. You want to end up with a number of references that you can get through in the time you've got available. And it's also important that you keep a research diary. What is a research diary? A research diary is just some place you keep track of your progress. It allows you to keep track of your searches, what you managed to get a copy of, what you've managed to read, what's worked, what hasn't worked. So the less time you spend reinventing the wheel as you come back to a project or a topic, the more time it will save you. How do you approach your topic? Well, it's no harm to start off by doing a scoping search, which is a rough and ready search to get an idea of what might be out there, and then use what you find to go on and develop a more comprehensive search. If you're already aware of a key reference, an article or a book, make sure you make the most of it. Always read the bibliography at the end of appropriate articles. All academic articles should have references to back up the claims that the author is making. So if there's a point in an article that you like and you think is relevant, it should have a couple of citations linking you to further reading, so you go and find those readings. Also allied to that is a technique called cited reference search, and this allows you to find who has used the article you like after it was published. Google Scholar is good for doing that, as well as Scopus, as well as Web of Science. So you can check to see who's taken the article you like and who has built upon it, disproved it, or embraced it into their own research. If you're finding it difficult to come up with a good search strategy, search for the article you know in the databases, and you can see what keywords the database has given to describe it. And the databases give consistent words to describe the content within it. So if you know what is being used to describe the article you like, you can take those keywords and see if there's any other articles that match that criteria. The good news is that there is a recognized process or cycle evolved in literature searching, and you can take advantage of this to guide you through the process. You start off at number one, where you define the question or problem. This is where you look at the question that's been posed, you break it down into its component parts, and you start thinking of what keywords you can use to describe it. You choose the appropriate database or resource for your topic, and we've shown you where you can find the subject guides and the listings for the databases and resources for your subject. Then you take the keywords you've discovered, the resources you've decided you're going to use, and then formulate your search strategy. And we're going to talk about how you can then formulate your search strategy to be as effective as possible. You need to evaluate the resources. Don't assume that everything is equal. You need to find the best quality information. And don't be surprised if it doesn't work flawlessly the first time and you need to tweak your search strategy to be the most effective that you can make it. So starting at number one, you're defining your topic. You get your question, you break it down into its key concepts, and then you start thinking of all the keywords that you can use to describe those concepts. So you think of as many different appropriate alternative words and phrases to describe that concept. So these are some of the things you can be thinking about when you're thinking about your keywords. Is there alternative vocabulary being used when people are talking about this topic? Are there variations in how words are spelt? This is usually American English versus Irish English. Words like colour or labour. Can you identify multiple words that have the same root but different endings? There are tools in the database to allow you to automatically search for all possible endings. Are there abbreviations being used? As well as using the abbreviation, use the full version and vice versa. So all these will allow you to think of multiple terms for the same concept and therefore improve the quality of your search. We're going to use this simple search as an example of how you can tease out some of the keywords. I'm not saying that I'm going to end up with everything, but you can spend a bit of time thinking about it as well to see if you can do better than what I've managed to do. So the question we're asking is, what effect has using catalytic converters had on carbon dioxide emissions and reducing global warming? So the main concepts I've picked up are carbon dioxide, catalytic converters, and global warming. So my next step is to think of alternative terms. So why don't you pause the video at this stage and start thinking of alternative terms for each of those concepts. So how else could you describe carbon dioxide? How else could you describe catalytic converters? And how else could you describe global warming? So did you have a go yourself at thinking up alternative words? So this is what I've managed to come up with myself. So for carbon dioxide, I thought of CO2. For catalytic converters, I thought of exhaust or exhaust emission control. And for global warming, I thought of climate change. You may have thought of additional keywords as well. So now I'm in a position to start building up my search. So I'm just going to write it out so then I can copy and paste into whatever database I'm going to use. So my first concept is carbon dioxide or CO2. Concept 2 is catalytic converter or exhaust emission control. And concept 3 is global warming or climate change. So where are you going to look for information? Well, there's a number of different places you will be looking depending on how much you know. And these are called primary, secondary and tertiary sources. If it's a new area that you're investigating and you're unsure of the basics, you're going to be looking at what we call the tertiary literature. And these could be encyclopedias and dictionaries. So you're looking for summaries or overviews or definitions. And at this stage, there's no controversy about the information. It's pretty much agreed among the entire community as to what the content is. If you already have that basic level of information but you want to go into more detail, then you can go to what we call the secondary literature. And this is books, review articles. The information is still synthesized. It's at more detail. But once again, generally people agree on the content. And the last place we're going to end up is what we call the primary literature. And these are your conference proceedings, your scholarly journal articles. This is original or new research. It's still up for debate. It could be controversial. So you need to be much more critical when you're reading this kind of information. And how can the library help you get to this information? If you're talking about reference material such as dictionaries and encyclopedias, you can search OneSearch to see what we have available for you. You can also search OneSearch to see if we have books or ebooks on this topic. If you're looking for your primary literature or your journal articles, you can use OneSearch databases or the journals themselves to find that information. And don't forget, there could be information in theses, so you can find those in OneSearch as well. Maybe there's articles being published in newspapers. And the great thing about newspapers is that they're written to be read by a broad audience, so they are usually quite understandable. So you can check all those sources to see if there's more information out there for you as well. By this stage of the literature searching process, you should have gotten your question, you should have broken it down into its component parts, you should have started thinking about all the possible keywords that you could use to describe that. We've shown you already where all the tools in the library are available for you, the databases. We've shown you where the subject guides are. So now we're going to talk about the various tools that you can use within the databases to do the best quality search for the information you need. And the ones we're going to be looking at today are Boolean operators, phrase searching, truncation, wildcard, field searching, and limits. One of the most basic tools you'll use when searching for information is Boolean logic or Boolean operators. These are used everywhere you're searching on a computer, whether you realize it or not. So when you're searching on Google, even if Google doesn't tell you it's using Boolean operators, it is using them to improve and run your search. There are three operators that you can use. They're AND, or not. So for example, if you're using the AND operator, what you're trying to do is combine different concepts together and narrow your search results. The example we have here is hydrogen and oxygen. That will give you the little bit in the center there, which is in red, where both concepts overlap. So in effect, both of the concepts have to be in any article that's returned in your search. The OR operator allows you to search for related terms. So argon or xenon, as long as one of those is in a title or an article, you'll see it in your results. The last option is the NOT operator. Sodium hydride, not water, will exclude water from any search result. Even that little bit in the center there where both concepts is going to be excluded because you said, I don't want to see anything to do with water. So you can see how you can use these terms to broaden your search, narrow your search, or exclude terms. You can type them out manually, and it's recommended that if you're doing that, you capitalize them, or you'll see when you go into the databases that there are drop-down menus in many cases allowing you to select your Boolean operator. Another basic tool that you can use to improve the quality of your search is phrase searching. And phrase searching searches for words that appear together in a particular order. So the example we have here is nitric acid. By putting quotation marks or inverted commas around that, it's telling the database you're searching for those two words together in that order. If you didn't put the inverted commas around it, it's going to search for nitric and acid, which is not the same. It's not as precise. So putting the inverted commas will allow you to do a more specific search. I mentioned this one earlier on, truncation. So if you're searching for loads of words that have the same root but different endings, you can very easily tell the database to search for all possible endings by using a symbol. Here we've gone for an asterisk. So chemi, C-H-E-M-I with an asterisk will get you chemical, chemist, chemistry. And it just keeps going on until you've got all possible endings, but you only have to type it in the one time. I also mentioned this one earlier on, and this is alternative spelling. So the same word can be spelled slightly differently depending where you are in the world or what profession that you're in. So words like colour or labour or centre. So what you can do is take out the letter that differs and put a symbol in its place. Here we've gone for question mark, take in place of the U. So colour with the U, with a question mark where the U is, we'll find your colour with a U and colour without a U. Now we've talked in truncation about using an asterisk and in alternative spellings using a question mark. These are not universal symbols. Different databases or resources will expect you to use different symbols, so check what symbol you should be using when you're searching that. You can also take advantage of the fact that the databases have highly organized or structured records. And if you have noticed that the good quality articles that you really like have certain terms in the title or abstract, you can tell the database that you want to search for those terms in the title or abstract to get that quality level that you require. And you'll see drop down menus once again allowing you to select what fields you want to search in the databases as well. And finally, we're going to look at limits. And limits is a powerful way of getting rid of stuff you know in advance that you don't want to see. So for example, if you want the most up-to-date research, you can use a date limit to discard everything older than the date you're happier with. You can limit by such things as language. So if, like me, all you have is English, you can put in a limit of just English. You can also limit by things such as peer review. So if you want the most reliable information, select peer review as a limit. So when you're thinking about your question, think about what you don't want to see coming up and see if you can find a limit in the databases to help you get rid of stuff. And one more limit to mention is peer review. Some academic journals are known as peer-reviewed journals. And what this means is that when an author submits an article for publication, the editors send the article out to other experts in the field. And only if they say it's worth publishing does it get published. So the peer review process is an attempt by the academic publishing to guarantee a level of quality in what's being published. So you can find in many databases an option to select peer review as a limit. So if you're being told you want high quality articles, then you should consider whether or not you want to use peer review as a limit. How can you tell if an article has been peer reviewed? As I said just a second ago, if the database has a limit for peer review, take that. Some databases, it's all peer review, so you don't have to worry about it. If the database has information about the journals contained in it, investigate that. You can often search for the journal in OneSearch or in Google and examine the journal homepage to determine if there's information about the journal and if it says it's peer reviewed or not. If we have a print copy of the journal in the library, you can take a copy off the shelves and look inside the cover and see if it says if it's peer reviewed or not. So returning to building up my search, I can review the keywords I've already selected and I can see based on what I've just covered, do I need to change it? So for example, I'm looking for the phrases, so I've put quotation marks around them. I could also check to see do I need to put truncation or wildcard searching as well to improve the quality of the search. We're going to now give you a quick demonstration on how you can use the databases to search for information, and we're going to show you Reaxys as an example of a chemistry database to search. We've been talking about databases for some time, so we're going to have a look at one of these databases in action. And the one we're going to have a look at is Reaxys, and it's a core chemistry focused database. There are a number of ways that you can access Reaxys. You can search for it in OneSearch, or you can go to the subject guide for chemistry and locate it there in the database listing. But we'll just search for it here in OneSearch. So I've typed in the database name, click on go. You'll see at the top there's a section called database recommendations. Just click on Reaxys. If you're asked to log in, just log in with your UCD Connect login details. And you'll be brought into the database itself. So we're going to do, as I said, a simple search. We're going to search for information on platinum and catalytic converters. So I can actually just paste the details in there. So I've got my search, and you'll notice that I put inverted commas or quotation marks around catalytic converter because I'm searching for those words as a phrase. Click on find. And I see that I have got 288 documents with platinum and catalytic converter as a phrase in the title, abstracts or keywords. There are 60 substances involved. There is 206,000 documents With platinum as a keyword, there is 3,122 documents as catalytic converter as a keyword as well. If we want to view the results from the top one, which is the most relevant, I can just click on view results and I'll be able to see all my information. Listed in the center there are all the articles. On the left hand side are limits, so I can play around with those. I can select how far back I want to go. You can play around with document type if you want articles, conference papers, etc. If there's any authors that are important, journal titles, etc. You can add those limits. And then you have the option to limit to or exclude, and I want to limit to. So just click on limit to, and it'll hide everything that doesn't match the criteria that I've chosen. If I want more information about an article, I can just click on the title and I get the abstract to remind me what the article is about. There's some keywords to describe it as well. You can also see keywords here. If I click on index terms, these are the terms given by the author but also by the database as well to describe this article. If I want to get to the full text of this article to read it, I can click on the full text link and I'm brought out to this intermediate page, and it's telling me some more information, and it's telling me it has the DOI, and that should engage automatically as it adds here, or you can click on that link. And hopefully if it all works, we'll be brought to a page where we have the PDF. So in this case, you can actually read the article online if you want to, or you can download the PDF and view it there as well. And if I go back to my list of references, remember we talked earlier on about, we showed you the video on saving references in OneSearch. You should always save your references to remind you what you have read so that you can cite and reference it correctly. And you can do this here also in Reaxys. Tick the box beside the references and then I can export them. Now I have to sign in, but you'll be able to export those references when you sign in. So if you sign, you get the option to create an account with the database. So you can register and then you can save searches and you can use that facility to export those references and save them for further use. So that's just a very quick look at the basics of Reaxys. You can sort by publication year, by document type, or cited by. But you can see how easy it is to get through once you have your search strategy to get through to the articles that you want. In previous searches, you may have found it difficult to get through to the full text of articles you've discovered. So I'm going to talk now about some steps or strategies you can use to help you get to the full text of the articles you're interested in. So the first step I would always take is I would just double check and search OneSearch to make sure we don't have access to it. This has worked for me in the past. I've been told that we don't have access to it. I've double checked it and it's been there. So that would always be my first step. You can always search Google Scholar. Google Scholar is great at showing you free versions of many articles. So just take the title of the article and search for it in Google Scholar. You can check to see if another university has it. Just as you can search OneSearch to see what we have, you can go to any other university's equivalent of OneSearch, put in the title of the journal and see if they have it. If you have a family member or friend who's studying there, email them and see if they'll download a copy of that article and send it on to you. You could try emailing the author. Quite often in the database is information about the authors and the institution, and sometimes even an email address. So you could always email them, explain that you're a student in UCD, you're doing research, you found their article, we don't subscribe to the journal, would it be possible to get a copy of the article? So you could always try that. If none of those work, you can try our interlibrary loan scheme. You'll see a link for that on the library homepage, and we will try and locate it for you somewhere else. But this is where it's starting to cost you a bit of money, and we'll charge you €6 for every article you request. You can also try buying it directly from the publisher. I'm only saying this to be thorough. Hopefully it never gets to this stage. And this will cost you a lot more than €6. I've seen prices ranging from $20 to $30, and it's usually just for 24-hour access. So if you buy the article and you don't look downloaded within the 24 hours and you still want it, you get to pay for it again. But as I said, hopefully you'll never get that far. You can always email me if you have a question and explain that where you found the article and what you've done to try and locate it, and I'll see if I can do anything to help you as well. So if we cast our mind back to the circle of the literature searching process, one of the later steps is evaluation. Don't assume that everything is equally as good. So you need to evaluate the results that you find. So why do you need to evaluate? You need to make sure that you can confidently back up your claims, that the source is fit for purpose, and that the information that you have found is reliable. So how do you go about evaluating a source? How can you determine whether something is good or bad? These are the criteria you should be using when you're evaluating your results. You need to think about the authority, the objectivity, the timeliness, the supporting evidence, and the relevance. So when we're talking about authority, we're asking who is the author and what is the source of their authority, i.e. what is their academic specialism or professional experience. So in the article, does it say professor or doctor? Does it say what organization they're working with? Can you tell if a systematic and rigorous process has been carried out? So for example, can you trace the articles or the references? Has the evidence been discussed and thoroughly analysed? And can you tell if it has been peer reviewed or gone through an editing process? Objectivity. What is the purpose of the information? Is it trying to inform, sell, or persuade you? Has the work been commissioned on part of another organisation? If so, have steps been taken to ensure objectivity? Are the author's own assumptions apparent? Or does his beliefs undermine the arguments he's trying to make? Can you tell when the information was created or last updated? Is there more recent research available? If it's information you found on a website, does it look like it's been maintained, and do the links work? Does the author provide supporting evidence to advance his ideas, views, and conclusions? What kind of evidence is being used? Is there any data or statistics being provided? Does it look like the author has undertaken any original research, or is he just repeating stuff? Are there any accurate references to other sources that you can follow? And finally, relevance. Is the information too basic or too advanced for your needs? Is the emphasis of the topic appropriate for your needs? And does it relate fully to the topic that you're interested in? And finally, remember, evaluate the source itself, not just the information. If you're asked for a primary source, is it a primary source? If you're asked for journal articles, the web might not be the best place to start. If you're asked for a detailed answer, is the source you found comprehensive enough? One of the important parts of any academic assignment is referencing and citing. And why is it important? It's part of academic writing. Academic research builds on existing knowledge, and you have to acknowledge that existing knowledge. It shows that you've read, understood, and can use other researchers' observation. It supports your discussion and your arguments. It avoids plagiarism. So you don't want to be caught passing off somebody else's writing, ideas, or research as your own. It'll help you get better marks, and it helps others to find your references as well. What needs to be referenced? Well, basically any source of information, whether it's from a book, a chapter from an edited book, a journal article, newspaper articles, conference papers, government publications, encyclopedias, websites, etc. In fact, the only information that doesn't need to be cited is what's called common knowledge. And this is information that can be reasonably expected that anybody would know, i.e. Dublin is the capital of Ireland. The last thing we're going to talk about is EndNote. And EndNote is a reference management tool which allows you to gather, store, and manage references. It allows you to add references manually from databases such as Reaccess, Web of Science, Google Scholar, and other sources. And then using a feature called Cite While You Write allows you to take those references from your EndNote library and add them into whatever document you're typing in Microsoft Word. We have a guide dealing with EndNote on the library website. You can find it in the study skills section of I Am a Student, and it'll introduce you to the basics. My contact details are on that because I'm responsible for EndNote support in the library. There should also be links on Brightspace for EndNote training for you. So there should be a recorded webinar going through how to use EndNote. There's information how to download and install EndNote, and a worksheet that you can go through it as well. I would recommend looking at this presentation on how to use EndNote, working through the worksheet, and gaining the experience of how to use EndNote. It's a very powerful tool that can save you a lot of time. It'll help you manage your references, and it'll save you that extra time also when you are doing an assignment and have to figure out how to reference everything that you've read. So it will save you time. Thanks for listening to this presentation. I hope you found it beneficial. If you have any questions about using any of the resources that we've mentioned here, please don't hesitate to get in touch. You'll find my contact details, as I pointed out earlier on the chemistry subject guide. And I do look forward to hearing from you if you have any questions.